أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين وبالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقد قال أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب عليه الصلاة والسلام فالمتقون فيها هم أهل الفضائل منطقهم الصواب وملبسهم الاقتصاد ومشيهم التواضع غضوا أبصارهم عما حرم الله عليهم ووقفوا أسماعهم على العلم النافع صلوات بيجي محمد وعلى السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. This is the second majlis in this series of majalis that began last night, and I introduce very briefly the discussions inshallah we will be undertaking in the nights to come. And as we had promised last night, inshallah we'll go right into the topic that we have chosen. And for those of you who weren't here last night, I'll very briefly introduce as to what it is that we will be talking about. But before I get into all of that, just an update that inshallah the entire majlis will be in English as it was requested last night. Initially my understanding was half English, half Urdu, but then there are a lot of folks in the audience that may not have been able to follow after I switched over to Urdu, albeit it was pretty much towards the end of the majlis. But nonetheless, I was requested, and sam'an wa ta'atan, whatever was requested, inshallah, we'll try and fulfill that. So I will not be switching over to Urdu. Maybe towards the end in the Masaib, I'll say a few words. But the discussion that we introduced last night was in reference to this sermon of Nahj-ul-Balagha, which is in some prints is number 193, and some apps or some other places it may be 192. But anyways, it's closer by to 193, 192, or 194. As you know, there have been many different prints and different numbers that I had mentioned last night as well. Based on those numbers, some may have placed it at a certain number. But in any case, if you were to look up, as we had made this agreement last night, that inshallah before coming to the majlis, if you can just go through the initial few segments of that khutbah, it will make it much easier to understand the words of Maulana Muttaqiyan. And while it is difficult to maybe find as to which one it is, but when you look up the topic of the khutbah, which is Khutbatul Muttaqeen, which was narrated to one of the closest companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen by the name Hammam, who one day in the gathering of the people asked Imam, Sif li al-Muttaqeen, describe the attributes of Muttaqeen. Hatta ka'anni anduru ilayhim. It is as if I am looking at them. So describe to me the sifat of muttaqeen as if I am looking at them. So whenever I look at them, I understand that these are muttaqeen. Imam tried to avoid answering it, فَتَثَاقَلَ عَنْ جَوَابِهِ, and did not respond. And instead, Imam just said, اتَّقِ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ مُحْسِنُونَ. Fear Allah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, or indeed those who are the ones who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and those who perform the righteous deeds. فَلَمْ يَقْنَا بِذَلِكَ. But Hammam was not super content with this response of Imam. He was not, pleased, in other words, is what Imam had said. Maybe he was looking for something more out of it. Maybe he thought that Imam, just brushed him aside, saying, okay, don't ask about something like this. And you may not be capable of handling the truth. You may not be capable of understanding the question that you are trying to explore. And then I gave a few reasons as to why Imam may not have answered it right away. That one of them could be that this mahfil where this question was raised, not everybody was worthy of that knowledge. That could be one of the reasons. Secondly, Imam also, warned Hammam, saying that you may not be able to comprehend, not just comprehend, you may not be able to bear the reality of this question and the answer that I may give to you. And it may actually take your life, because when you see the reality of it. Or there could be many other reasons that why Imam, maybe he wanted to show importance to the question, that it's such an important question, it should not be just answered in one sentence. While, many a times a person would come to the Holy Prophet, he would answer the question, he would do ta'ammul before answering it. Someone said, oh Prophet, did you think about the answer? Prophet said, no, I didn't have to think about it. I know the answer to it. It's just that tawqiran lil hikmah. I wanted to give waqar to the wisdom. So there's some importance and value given to the question that was being raised. Because that was the reason when people would approach Ma'asumeen, and in particular Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. And you've heard this story. Imam would respond to all of their queries. They said, Imam, how is it that you have the knowledge of all the things that we, propose to you? Imam, simple illustration of it. Imam said, extend your hand. That person extended his hand. Imam said, how many fingers do you hold? He said, 5. Imam said, why don't you think about it before answering? He said, well, it's right in front of me. There's nothing to think about that how many fingers I have. I have the eyes to see it. Imam said, well, all of the knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us is the same way. That everything is right in front of us. We don't have to ponder, think about digging down the answer for that particular reason or that particular question. And that is why those famous words were uttered by no one other than Amirul Mu'mineen when he said, لَوْ كُشِفَ الْغِطَاء مَزْدَدْتُ يَقِينًا. When all the veils are lifted, it will not increase one bit in my knowledge. Not one bit will be increased as far as my knowledge is concerned. Why? Because yaqeen is reference to maut. When maut comes upon insan, all of the veils are lifted. You reach that level of certainty and yaqeen where now everything is obvious to you. But obviously that is too late. You should be able to see all of the realities before that maut comes upon you. Sorry for repeating all of these things. I know I've spoken here a great deal and you may have heard these things before. That's the reason the Holy Prophet said to us, Mutu qabla an tamutu. Die before death actually overtakes you. What does that mean? That means have yaqeen before your maut and death comes upon you. So reach the level where reality is clear to you and is evident to you and nothing is hidden from your eyes. So mutu qabla an tamutu. An-nasu niyamun. That people are sleeping. Idha matu intabahu. And when death comes upon them, only then they awaken. So that awakening at the time of death is obviously too late. A person should be able to take heed and bring this awakening before death comes upon them. So with that muqaddama, we started the discussion that Hammam asked a question regarding the sifat of muttaqeen. When Imam tried to resist and tried to hesitate and saw that Hammam was still eager in his questioning, Imam then found a time and place where it was worthy to respond to Hammam's request. And then he goes ahead and he narrates this entire khutbah, which consists of 110 attributes of muttaqeen. You and I would be lucky to adopt one out of these 110. Inshallah, at least we have the knowledge of these 110 by the end of the Majalis Aza here, the 12 nights that I have, inshallah. At least just, a bird's eye view, looking at it from the bird's view, that, we're able to see what it is that Imam has spoken as far as these sifat of muttaqeen are concerned. This topic is not something which is new. You've heard a great deal, especially these topics are discussed when? During the holy month of Ramadan. Because the month of Ramadan is the month of, reform and building and rebuilding. But I see that the month of Muharram al-Haram is pretty much the same thing. Because this is a time when your hearts are open and they're thirsty. They're thirsty for knowledge. You come here to weep and shed tears for the tragedy of Karbala. This is the best opportunity to go ahead and inculcate, give you anything, and you'll be able to go ahead and absorb, and you'll be able to go ahead and take it. Sometimes it could be a tough pill, sometimes it could be easy, but you'll swallow it because what's lying ahead. And that is the musibat of Sayyid al-Shuhada. When you tell a person that you have to go through a difficult surgery, open heart surgery or other transplant or whatever the case may be. But there's hope that after this difficult phase, you'll be able to live, a healthier life. A person is, willing to go through that difficult surgery. Because what lies ahead is something which will be comfortable for them and a peaceful life. And therefore, the same thing is over here when we're able to share this sort of communication. So Imam, before I get into the actual sifat that I recited for you, 5 of them tonight, let's look at it from the Quranic perspective as to how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described taqwa to us. There are various things that could be translated as taqwa. One is fear. Most common translation of the word taqwa is what? Is to fear. Another translation is to safeguard yourself. Be God-wary, God-conscious. All of these could be, meanings of the word taqwa. But Quran also explains to us that different things have been used as taqwa or the word of fear in the meaning of the word fear. In first occasion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers himself to be the object of fear. When it says in Quran, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu ittaqullah. O those who believe, fear Allah. So Allah becomes that object of fear. Now we explained a little bit that Allah is not an entity which one must be fearful of. One must be afraid of. It is the maqam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are scared of. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ. As far as those who are afraid of the maqam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With what lies ahead if we are to obey and if we were to disobey Him. What is it that is going to be the result of it? That leads to that fear and that leads to that, scary aspect of it. Number 2, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this very book of His considers the day of judgment to be a matter of fear, an object of fear. It says, وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا. Be fearful of the day, لَا تَجْزِي نَفْسٌ عَنْ نَفْسٍ شَيْئًا. Be fearful of that day, when no soul will be able to benefit from another soul. We have been explained in Quran on numerous occasions as to how that day would be a day of afra-tafri. People running around, not knowing which way to turn, not knowing whom they should ask for help, seek for help, and therefore one should be fearful of that day. Now why are you fearful of that day? Because that's the day of accountability. That's the day when you will be held accountable for what it is that you have done and what it is that you did not do. So therefore it brings what upon you? It brings the aspect of fear into you. Number 3, fire of hellfire is also considered to be, fire of hell is also considered to be an object of fear. It says, وَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي أُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ. Be fearful of the fire which is prepared for who? Mu'mineen, muttaqeen, Muslimin? No, lil kafirin. That it has been created and prepared. Be fearful of that fire, lest you end up being part of that fire that has been created for only kafirin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not intend to throw you in it. The intention is for kuffar. But don't become the material which is used to go ahead and burn this fire. And that could be you as well. And lastly, the object of fear is the punishment itself. It says, وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً. And be afraid of that fitna, that punishment, that trial, that tribulation that you will go through, whether in this life or in the hereafter, more so in the hereafter. That is promised, because when you look at the word fitna has been used in Quran on numerous occasions, sometimes it could be misleading to us. That innamal amwal wal awlad fitna. For example, the wealth and the children are referred to as fitna. Now that fitna is different than the fitna that we know of in Urdu, although that fitna also has the same meaning in Arabic as well. But this is where sometimes the confusion may arise as to what is the word literally means. And that's why understanding Quran is top priority for us. And I'll tell you that in one of the ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers himself to be what? Muttaqi. That he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, huwa ahlul taqwa wa ahlul maghfirah. That he is ahlul taqwa and he is ahlul maghfirah. Now we say, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself is muttaqi. Or for example, another place in Quran, when he describes his sifat, he says, Allahu la ilaha alladhi lahul mulku al-quddusul salamul mu'minul muhaymin. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is someone, huwa Allahu alladhi la ilaha illa huwa al-malikul quddusus salamul mu'minul muhaymin. So you see there are two sifat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used for himself. One, that he's muttaqi. Second, that he's mu'min. Now someone may also use these sifat inappropriately by not understanding what does the word taqwa in this particular ayat means and what does the word mu'min in this particular ayah mean. And in order to score some, attraction and wahwa from people, people might go to the extent by saying, look, Allah is muttaqi, whereas Ali is Imamul Muttaqin. Allah is Mu'min and Ali is Amirul Mu'minin. And the crowd will take the word as is. MashaAllah, such oratory, beauty in what this person is saying, and not understand that what are you doing? You are making Ali to be the Amir of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na'udhu billah. You're making Ali to be the Imam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where the word mu'min does not mean believer in this ayah. When he says, huwa Allahu alladhi la ilaha illa huwa al-malikul quddusus salamul mu'min, mu'min does not mean believer here. It may be spelled as mu'min as believers, and you and I are. But the madda of the word mu'min comes from the one who gives aman. The one who gives protection. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mu'min, the one who gives protection to you. Not that he's a believer, so that you can go ahead and say that Amirul Mu'mineen would be the Amir of his. Salawat beji Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So from these ayat we can understand that taqwa could be fear, it could be God-wariness, it could be safeguarding ourselves from the disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, just a practical example of it, that there was a person by the name Muhammad Baqir Istarabadi. Now, those of you who are, have studied ilm falsafa and irfan, ilm kalam, you are aware of this name. May not be his original name, But when I tell you the laqab that he was known for, Mir Damad. Mir Damad was a philosopher of his time, and he lived in Isfahan. I'll tell you his worth, that he was the teacher of Mullah Faid Kashani and Sadrul Mutallihin Mullah Sadra. Just imagine being the teacher of these two individuals. Just imagine what your worth would be. And so, why did he become Mir Damad? Damad, we know in Urdu, in Farsi, in Arab, Damad is someone who's, son-in-law. And Mir Damad for that reason. That means he was the Damad of Mir. Someone who was the Mir at that time. And Mir usually refers to someone who's, has the authority, chief, or, president, or whatever the case, king, all of these. They would be referred to as Mir. The story is that Mir Damad, or Muhammad Baqir Istarabadi, he was a talaba, he was a student in his hawza, a very young man. And that was the dawr and the time of the Safavid Empire. And the Safavid ruler at that time was Abbas Safawi. He was the ruler of the time. His daughter, with some sort of, quarrel with the father and, dispute and disagreement, she left the house. And after a while, the father became worried as to where did his daughter go. So he sent his men to go look for her. She hid herself so that they don't catch up to her. And eventually she enters into this Hawza Ilmiya, this seminary. And she knocks on the door. That was the door of, Muhammad Baqir Istarabadi. He opens it, sees this young lady standing there, and she threatens him to let her in. He backs away. She comes inside the room. She says, if you tell anyone, know that I'm the daughter of Abbas Safawi. And if you tell anyone that I'm here, I'll have you killed and punished and thrown into the prison. Poor talaba, student, scared as it is, for his own iffat and modesty, see this girl, this lady walk in, and then also to be threatened. She said, what do you have for food? He said, some milk and, dried bread. She said, bring it. So he gives it to her. She eats it and then she falls asleep. And then when this nighttime comes, obviously, Shaitan does his duty, his work starts. And as a matter of fact, we'll get to the point where Layl is actually referred to as one of the, the synonyms for taqwa is also Layl, and the night is also referred to as that. And we'll get to that, inshallah. And this is where Muhammad Baqir Istarabadi was a young man. He has the same inclinations, and he sees the shaitan is trying to do waswas, but he has to control himself. So what do he do? He goes on the side and he lights up this lamp or this, fire, or just to keep the light and everything. And every time this waswas comes to his mind, he puts his finger on top of it until he could hold it, and then he pulls it back. This night went past. In the morning, the guards were coming looking for this girl. They could not think that she would be inside this seminary, but she herself walks out. So they grab her, and then they capture him, Muhammad Baqir Istarabadi as well. They take him to Abbas Safawi and tell him, first of all, why didn't you tell us that she was there? He said, well, she threatened me. I couldn't say anything. Two-edged sword, whichever way I went, I would have been a dead duck anyway. So therefore, I kept quiet. And then he said, how did you control yourself having, such a person with you all night long? He showed him his 10 fingers. He said, every time this waswas came to me, I reminded myself of the fire of hell. And I put this, mombatti that was there, and I would burn one of my finger to tell myself that if you can't resist this fire, how will you be able to resist the fire of hell? So this is how he performed what is called taqwa and portrayed what is called taqwa in order to safeguard himself. So sometime by burning, and that's not the option that I'm giving over here, but by burning, Muhammad Baqir Istarabadi safeguarded himself. And that's where, Abbas al-Safawi was excited of what he heard. He actually decided to marry his daughter to Muhammad Baqir al-Starabadi. Thus he became what? Mir Damad. Damad of someone who was the Mir. Another story of the same reference is of Ibn Sirin. You may have heard of his name as well in Riwayat. Ibn Sirin became a person who had the ilm of, ilm ru'ya, tabir khab. He was able to interpret the dreams. Now, how did he gain that? Through wara and through taqwa. That he had a store where he used to sell goods. A lady came and she asked to buy some stuff. When she bought everything, she said, it's heavy for me to carry. Can you bring it to my house? I'll give you the money once you deliver it. He said, fine. So he walks behind her, delivers it to the house, and she makes him come inside. So he understands the intentions. Right away he says, can I go to the restroom? She said, go ahead. She points him to the restroom. He goes there and he takes all the najasat that were there, and he rubs it all over his body. And as soon as he walks out, she said, get out of here. Why do you have all the najasat on you? So he safeguarded himself through this najasat that was upon him. And thus he was given ilm ru'ya and the ilm of tabir khab. So this is what taqwa does, brothers and sisters. This is what wara and safeguarding yourself does, and that's how Quran has mentioned it. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There are many narrations in this respect as well. I have only chosen a few, as I know time, as soon as we get on the mimbar, time just flies. And before I know, I'm halfway through it. That when this question was raised as to what taqwa is from Masumin, you would expect a long list of things. But this is where the kalam and the beauty of the kalam of Masumin lies. That in one sentence, they're able to give you a formula, and they're able to give you the result of that formula. So when Imam was asked, or sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu was salam, and tafsir al-taqwa, when he was asked on tafsir al-taqwa, he said, an la yafqidaka Allahu haythu amaraka, wa la yaraka haythu nahaka. Two things. That you should not be absent where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see you. And you should not be present where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want to see you. And if you're capable of doing these two things, then you are amongst those who are pious and those who are muttaqeen. What are the places? I mean, I can go in the details of it, and again, that'll take entire time of the speech. You know the manifestation and the misdaq of what Imam is trying to tell us. That Imam expects you to be present in such majalis-e-azah. Being here is also a tawfiq. And I find amongst the words of Arabic, the most difficult of the words, there are many other words, to translate is the word tawfiq. That's why you've seen a lot of the scholars, when they're making the dua, they say, oh Allah, give us the tawfiq. And they don't translate the word tawfiq. Some have said strength. Oh Allah, give us the strength. But the strength does not really do justice to the word tawfiq. The tawfiq could be understood by one example. That tonight, you had a Labor Day weekend, and I'm sure there were other things that you could be doing. You could be in the comfort of your house, relaxing on your couch. 9:30 for some people is, bedtime or past bedtime. By the time you leave this place, it will definitely be past your bedtime. You're putting yourself into difficulty by sitting here where you could be nicely in your own houses, relaxing on your couches or your beds with your family, or doing something which may be part of the priorities that you have. But the fact that you know that there is 2nd of Muharram, there is Majlis-e-Azah, and Gham of Sayyidul Shuhada is being commemorated, and you make this journey and you come and sit over here, although it's very comfortable, but you make yourself uncomfortable and you sit over here for an hour or 2 hours to listen to this. That is called tawfiq. That the fact that there was some inner conscious, there was some inner voice that was telling you that no, this is the priority over all the priorities that I have. at home, relaxing, whatever it is that I may have been doing. I could have been traveling. I could have been somewhere else. I could have been with family. I could have been doing this and that. But the fact that I'm over here sitting in this majlis aza, commemorating the gham of Sayyid al-Shuhada, paying tribute to that family, that's called tawfiq. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed this tawfiq onto you that you are present over here. And that's the tafsir of taqwa according to our sixth Imam, that Allah, wherever He commands you to be, make sure that you are present. And wherever He tells you not to be, make sure that you are absent from such places. And that's why Amirul Mu'mineen adds on to it by saying, Tamamut taqwa, an tata'allama ma jahilta, wa ta'amal bima alimta. If you want to know the entirety of taqwa, taqwa in its entirety, then there are two things in it. That make sure that you learn what you are ignorant of and you act upon that which you already have the knowledge of. At one point, there's so many things that I haven't learned. Every single day I'm learning something. Right? Utlubul ilm min al-mahdi ila al-lahad. Seek knowledge from cradle to grave. There's not a day goes by that I haven't increased in my knowledge. You know, a few years ago there was an issue and there was a discussion and it came about at another center where there was, people were trying to keep an eye on the younger kids that they don't run around. So, we'll go ahead and accommodate where they could sit, for example, in a separate hall while listening to the majlis, but not disturbing others, just so that we can accommodate everyone who's coming in. Some people took it the wrong way, saying that we're depriving our children from entering the masajid and the majalis. Prophet never used to do that. And they'll give the example of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, how Prophet would be praying and they will climb over his shoulder, on his back, and they will sit there until Prophet would remove. Or you'll start seeing the messages that a mosque from where you don't hear the cries of the children, their future is dark, for example. Or different things of that sort. So, it's a very clear-cut mas'ala. In fact, it is also mentioned in the Tawzihul Masail as well. It is there in the riwayat of Masumeen that if a child who's, of that age where it's possible for them to, for example, make the place najis or to cause unnecessary disturbance, it is okay to take them, out to another place where, at least they're still part of it. Say, no, this is where we do the tarbiyat. This is where we bring. Our fathers and our mothers used to bring us when we were younger. And I see a lot of younger kids, which is definitely true. Bring them. This is how you'll do the tarbiyat. And this is how you will be able to inculcate this knowledge to them. But to go ahead and combine these two things and say, well, this is wrong and that is correct. So I quoted this hadith from the Holy Prophet, which stated what I just mentioned to you, that it is okay to remove them if there's a fear that they may make the place najis, for example, or cause unnecessary disturbance. Someone said to me, I've been listening to majalis for the past 50 years. I've never heard such a thing. I said, I've been a student of Hawza for the past 20 years. There's still many things that I haven't heard of. There's still many things that I'm learning. Every single day you learn something. So it is quite possible that there are many things that you all know over here that I am unaware of. The fact that I'm sitting over here does not mean that I have all the knowledge in the world. That joke of Mullah Nasruddin, that someone came to him and asked him a question. He said, La adri, I do not know. Person responded by saying, such a big amama on your head and you say you don't know? So he took off the amama and he gave it to that person. Here, you wear the amama if you think that gives you the knowledge. Salawat beji Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. I'll skip the importance of taqwa because that's something which, alhamdulillah, hopefully that is something which is already known to us. And I'll get right to the kalam of Amirul Mu'mineen. So at least we have covered 4 or 5 attributes of muttaqeen. Imam says, فَالْمُتَّقُونَ هُمْ أَهْلُ الْفَضَائِلِ. The first sifat of muttaqi, a pious person that Imam mentions is what? He begins by telling that they are ahlul fada'il. They are the ones who possess virtues. They are people who have extraordinary qualities. And then Imam gets into what those qualities are. He says, فَمَنْتِقُهُمُ الصَّوَابِ, that the God-wary or the God-fearing or the people of distinction, their speech is to the point. وَمَلْبِسُهُمُ الْإِقْتِصَادِ, their dress is moderate. وَمَشْيُهُمُ الْتَوَاضُ, and their gait, their walk is humble. They keep their eyes closed to that which is haram and unlawful to them, and they put their ears to that which is beneficial to them. These are the first 5 attributes that Imam mentions of Ahlut Taqwa, those who are considered to be muttaqeen. I don't think I'll be able to explain and go in the details of all of these 5, but whatever extent that we get to, inshallah, we'll leave the remaining to the next day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He explains the concept of taqwa, and when He explains the criteria for mankind, that very famously recited ayah, that even the past president of this country had also recited when he gave a lecture in Egypt, the Cairo University. He recited this ayat too, that inna khalaqnakum min dakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ila lita'arafu inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. That the most honorable amongst you in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not the one who's the most handsome, the tallest, the best looking, or from the other materialistic aspects has something. No. Akramakum indallahi atqakum. A lot of times some of these things are used so often that we take them for granted. That this very ayat is used so often that it may have been taken for granted. That inna akramakum indallahi, akram is being referenced to the highest degree. The most honorable, not, there are levels of honor, so in the middle or on the bottom half. The most honorable in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is someone atqakum, the one who has the maximum amount of taqwa. Now here we look at that how sometimes the verses of Quran could also be misunderstood. In Surah Al-Imran 102, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ittaqullah haqqa tuqatihi. All those who believe, fear Allah the way He deserves to be feared. Haqqa tuqatihi, right? It's sometimes very difficult to translate such a thing, into English, similar to how when you translate, innama yuridullah liyudhiba ankum rissa ahl bayt yutahhirakum, how tathira. The way, Salawat Diji Muhammad wale, that He intends to purify you, the thorough purification. I don't know, however you want to translate this. It does not really give you the real meaning of it. Similarly, in this ayah, haqqa tuqatihi does not really give us the entire picture as to what does that mean. Haqqa tuqatihi. Whatever He deserves, whatever is the highest level. So we can translate it as that fear Allah at the peak of fear. Whatever it is, the highest level, and there's nothing beyond that. That would be haqqa tuqatihi. But then another place in Surah Ra'd, I believe you read, ittaqullah mastata'tum. Fear Allah according to your best ability. Right away, you would question that haqqa tuqatih wa mastata'tum. Are these two not contradictory to one another? That if I was to tell someone that make sure in this exam you do your best, that means get 100% grade or close to 100% grade. Or at one time I may tell someone, just whatever is your ability. Do to best of your ability. That means, 70 would be all right too. 75 would be okay as well. Isn't there a difference between the two? Right away you'll question. There's this clear contradiction where it says, haqqa tuqatih wa mastata'tum. You say, no, there isn't any contradiction. Because when you refer to these ayat with those who are hadiyan barhaq. When Rasulullah was leaving, he said, I leave behind you two weighty things. One is Quran, second is my itrat. Then you will not find any sort of contradiction between these ayat. And when you ask a ma'asum as to what are these two ayat, how do you put a parallel between these two? Imam Ma'asum would respond by saying that haqqa tuqat is your destination, mastatatum is the path that you will get on to get to that destination. Salawat beji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So therefore, first attribute that Imam mentions over here is the attribute of mantiq. Mantiq means speech, and sawab means that which is without error. That means the speech of muttaqeen is errorless, or there isn't void of any error. Mantiquhum as-sawab. So therefore, it is being addressed to us. You and I are the speakers. You and I are the ones who are speaking. When we want to adopt this attribute of taqwa, first thing that Imam mentions that what should it be? That our mantiq, our speech should be void of error. In fact, when you look at the course or the subject of mantiq itself, because logic is something which is taught. And if you look at logic in seminaries when it's taught, the first thing which is mentioned, what is the definition of logic and mantiq? Mantiq is an ilm which keeps your lisan, your tongue from khata, from making mistakes. So if you are mantiqi, if you are logical, that means you're lacking any sort of khata and lapses in your language. So Imam says that the first sifat of muttaqeen is that they are khata. There isn't any khata or any lapse or any sort of mistake as far as their tongue is concerned. Now with this ni'mat comes a bigger responsibility. The bigger the ni'mat, the bigger the responsibility. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this tongue to all of us. This tongue has been in possession of all of us. Now this is one of the biggest ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who do you ask? Someone who's unable to speak. You ask them of the worth of this tongue that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to you, and then you'll realize the worth of this tongue. And that goes for every other organ that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. Every other ni'mat that He has bestowed upon you. That if you are lacking that ni'mat, only that person is capable of understanding who does not have it. Therefore, inna akthara khataya ibn Adam, the majority of the lapses and the mistakes of son of Adam is fi lisanihi. Come and emerge from their tongue. And therefore we find what are the dangers of this tongue and why are the dangers of the tongue are superior. If we can just take this back as a learning curve for our daily speech, for our daily conversation. When it comes to speaking to whom? To our colleagues, to our friends, to our family, to our parents, to our children, to our spouses, to our siblings, to our subordinate, those who are above us. This is where your tongue should be at its best. And that's what Amirul Mu'mineen expects from a muttaqi, that mantiquhum as-sawab, that their tongue should be without any mistakes. And therefore we see why the dangers of this tongue and the stakes are high. Because tongue has always been in your possession, whereas many other elements of sin may not have been in your possession. It is the easiest tool to commit a sin, while other tools may require some sort of monetary expenses. Alcohol, adultery, and others, it may require spending some money, but tongue, it does not require any wealth to go ahead and commit a sin with this tongue. You can commit multiple sins with this tongue without having realized. You can lie, backbite, slander, defame, cause fitna with the same tongue all at once, without even sometimes realizing it. The grandeur and the taqaddus of this tongue has been broken. You know, what is this when we say and we hear about ghibat? Ghibat is actually, amongst ulama akhlaq, translated as stripping someone of their clothes. That's how it's translated. So if I was to ask some of you, or one of you, that I want you to strip your clothes and stand outside of this, Imam Barga said, no way. Anyone with little amount of sharam and haya will refrain from such an act. So there's no way possible. Right here in this Imam Barga, or any Imam Barga, or any public place for that matter, no way. I have at least that much sharam. You will not consider that for yourself, stripping yourself outside so that people will see, but you will easily strip someone else of their clothes by uttering a few words of ghibat and slandering them without even realizing it. Remember that story of Hazrat Isa ﷺ when he was walking with his Hawari and his companions? And he said to him that, what if you were to walk by, someone, marra bi akhi fara'a thawbahu qad inkashafa an ba'd awratihi. You were to pass by one of your friends and you see that some of their body parts are exposed. In fact, he uses the word awratihi, that means their private parts are exposed. For example, we just went to Hajj, and in Hajj you're wearing this ihram, and sometimes people in ihram, they will not be very careful how they sit or how they lie down. So people are sleeping in the masajid, or they're sleeping, for example, in their tents in Mina or in Arafat. And, someone is laying, and when they're laying and they're sleeping, they may not, protect themselves or cover themselves properly. Maybe some of their, covering is removed. Hazrat Isa says, what would you do when you see some of the body parts, that too, some of the private parts are exposed? All of them responded by saying, of course, we're going to cover it up. We don't want any of our brothers and sisters in that situation, because we don't want ourselves to be in that situation. He said, Bal takshifun. He responded by saying, no, not only you won't cover them, rather you'll expose them even further. If this much was removed, you will remove this entirely. He said, no, astaghfirullah, we won't do that. But then they understood that he was only setting a parable and an example. He did not literally mean by giving this example. He said, how many times that you hear a secret of someone, and before you put a lid onto it, you go ahead and share it with others, and you let it out and expose that person even further. And these days, it's very easy with the communication devices that we have. You hear something about someone right away, it is shared all over the world. And therefore, you are exposing that person. So therefore, we understand how serious the crimes of this tongue could be, but there are ways to go ahead and protect it as well. It's not that Masumeen have only explained the dangers of something without giving us what? The cure for it. I'll run through the cures very quickly, and inshallah I'll conclude with that. Masumeen have mentioned some cures. Cure number one for controlling this tongue is sukut, silence. It said, as-samtu zainun. Silence is what? It's zinat. It's considered to be zinat. Al-mar'u makhbu'un tahta lisanihi. Amir al-Mu'mineen says that a person is hidden under their tongues. What good or bad they have comes out as soon as they open their tongues. So therefore, practice silence. Nothing wrong in remaining silent. إِذَا تَمَّ الْعَقْلُ نَقَصَ الْكَلَامِ. How beautiful. That as soon as insan's aql reaches its maturity, نَقَصَ الْكَلَامِ. Kalam decreases. Right away, there's lack of speech or there's lack of talk. Yes, you should talk wherever there is a need for you to raise your voice. No, don't be silent over there. But generally speaking, when a person reaches that level and his aql is complete, you will automatically see that how this person reduces the kalam that he uses. Number 3, first think before talking. Because the comparisons that have been done are with jahil and aqil, are done with ahmaq and aqil, that a person who has aql, they think before they talk. Their tongues are behind their hearts. Whereas ahmaq or jahil is someone who thinks after having said something, because their tongues are after their hearts. So therefore, these are some of the tools which one can utilize to go ahead and control this. Number 2 is malbisuhumul iqtisad, that their dress is moderate, and mashyuhumut tawadu. There's so much to discuss, that their gait is humble. But inshallah, we'll get to those things in the nights to come. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Wasari'u ila maghfiratin. That hasten towards the maghfirat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the mahfil, this is the majlis, this is the gathering where, when you do tazarru and zari, when we make dua, how many words of dua does it take for us to seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But the beauty of this majlis with the barakat of Sayyidul Shuhada is that you don't have to utter a word from your tongue and your sins are forgiven. One drop of your tear, according to Riwayah, I mentioned it last night as well, is enough to wipe out all of your sins. Don't take this for granted. One tear is enough to extinguish the fire of hell, or to cool it, for that matter. Therefore, sari'u ila maghfirat min rabbikum. Hasten towards the maghfirat. And therefore, the riwayah says, man baka wa abka wa tabaki. Whoever cried, made others cry, or acted as if they were crying. I'll get in the details of this hadith tomorrow, just using it to reference into the masaib of tonight. Wajaba lahul jannah. That paradise becomes, wajib upon such an individual. When you talk about jihad of Sayyidul Shuhada, jihad is of two types. You've all heard of it many times. There's jihad akbar and there's jihad asghar. In both types of jihad, there's qatil and there's maqtul. In one of the jihads, if you're qatil, you're praiseworthy. If you're maqtul, you're still praiseworthy. Because you killed in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or if you were killed, you're considered to be shaheed. But in the other type of jihad, if you're qatil, you're praiseworthy. But if you're maqtul, then you're matrood. That's not a good thing to be. Because you became submissive to commands of shaitan. Because you were fighting against your nafs. So you became maqtul. But in any case, in that jihad which is fought in the plains, it is a possibility that you may attain shahadat or you may not attain shahadat, right? But when you do tawassul to Sayyidul Shuhada and you perform the ziyarat of Sayyidul Shuhada, or when you say, Ya laytani kuntu ma'ak, I wish I was with you, that is enough for your reward of shahadat. Remember the story of Jabir? When Jabir arrived at the grave of Imam Hussein, he said, "Oh Hussein, we are at the same maqam of shahadat as you." Atiya Ufi said to Jabir, we just entered Karbala. The massacre of Karbala had already taken place. This is the Chehilum that we have just entered upon. What are you saying? He says, someone who loves the acts of shuhada, agrees with the acts of shuhada, it is as if they are also shaheed alongside with them. So therefore, I am with Sayyidul Shuhada as far as the shahadat is concerned. This masala is actually bigger than that. When you spend the night in the haram of Sayyidul Shuhada, do baytuta in the shrine and next to the qubba in the haram of Imam Hussein, you spend the entire night until the morning. Rawaya says that it is as if you fought in a battle and you did jihad and you were killed and you were with the blood of your own body and you were surrounded with it, and that's how you're meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Khoon mein aghashta, Allah se mulaqat ki ho. This may happen once with you if you were to enter into actual jihad. But the barakat of Sayyidul Shuhada is that every time you spend the night over there, you are given the same reward as if you were killed in the battlefield with Sayyidul Shuhada and you were, in your own blood and you were meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This can only be attained with the barakat of Sayyidul Shuhada. This caravan had started making his journey. And there was an ambassador of Imam Hussein by the name Muslim ibn Aqil. Imam had trusted in him and he has sent him as the most trustworthy person to deliver the message after all the letters that he has received from the people of Kufa. Initially, Imam heard good things from Muslim, that 18,000 people are with you. In fact, he said, all of Kufa is with you. But then what transpired in a few days' time was very difficult for Muslim to even fathom. That the riwayah mentions that at night time when Muslim was performing his salat, he turns around and he sees that there's nobody behind him. Everybody had left him. Imagine being a stranger in a city which you're not used to. And thereupon, reaching over there, once you are greeted and you're received well, and then people strand you alone. Muslim wanders into the streets of Kufa, eventually finds this house he was sitting outside of. This lady offers him, first tries to tell him to go away, go back to your home, to which Muslim says, I don't have any home. And then when she finds out that he belongs to the family of the Holy Prophet, that is cousin of Sayyidul Shuhada, Imam Hussein, she invites him inside the house. Provides for him. Muslim spends the entire night doing the ibadat. Until this was told that Muslim is hiding in so-and-so's house, that Ibn Ziyad sends people, Muhammad ibn Ash'as and others, to go ahead and capture Muslim. And when they came, they saw that how he fought with some valor and bravery. That he said, we need more people. He said, I sent you to capture one person and you need more people? He said, you thought that we were going to capture some ordinary individual? No, this belongs to the family of the Holy Prophet. He's from the family of Jafar al-Tayyar. He's from the family of Ali Haydar Karrar. So we need more people. And eventually, Muslim gave in and he was taken to Darul Amara. And that's where Muslim wanted to utter the last few words before he was killed. And he wanted to send a message to Imam Hussein that the letter that I had written to you, to asking you to make your way towards Kufa, and I'm telling you to don't come to Kufa because these people are not going to be with you. But he was not able to convey this message. His head was severed in some riwayat. He hung from Darul Amara. His body was thrown through the ground. And in some riwayat, he was paraded around the city of Kufa before actually the caravan would arrive and they would parade into the city of Kufa. Imam ﷺ is already on his journey when he arrives at the place of Urud. This is where Imam finds out the news that Muslim has been martyred. Farazdaq and others have told Imam that Kufa, their hearts may be with you, but their suyuf are against you. But Imam did not pay attention to that. But as soon as he hears the news that Muslim is no longer alive, his shahadat has taken place, place. He comes to the daughter. First he comes to the sons, Tiflan Muslim. He says, your father has been killed. What is it that you want to do? Should we come back, return? They said, no, we want to go and we want to take the revenge of our father's martyrdom. This is where Imam comes to the daughter of Muslim. He brings her close. She's probably the same age as Imam's daughter. He brings her closer. He puts his hand on her head, and when he does so, this little girl says, Maula, what do I feel that you're treating me like how orphans are treated? Imam said, oh my daughter, indeed, your father has been killed. You have become an orphan. But as long as I am alive, you will not feel the orphanage. I will say, Maula, you gave this tasalli to the daughter of Muslim, but tomorrow when you will be martyred, who will come and say the same to Sakina? ألا لعنة الله القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم حسين.